Hey there, and welcome to Utility Sports. We have some breaking news. Gordon Hayward is signing with the Charlotte Hornets. What does this mean for the Hornets roster? Well, they have to create space. And by this, we mean Nicholas Batum is on his way out. He's being stretch waived currently for 3 years. He's going to be paid about $9 million a season for those 3 years. Sheldon, break it down.
Yeah, so this is an interesting move for the Charlotte Hornets. Obviously, a team that has kind of lacked direction, been right around that 5 to 9 range in terms of the draft lottery almost every year, kind of the exact spot you don't really want to be in the NBA. And this year they lucked into falling into the third overall selection in the lottery. Obviously, grabbed LaMelo Ball on draft night, and now today they're grabbing Gordon Hayward. And you're really looking at an improved roster here, going from Nicholas Batum, who's a mid-level type of wing, really a guy who's more of a minimum type player who's going to give some good depth to an NBA roster, to now a guy who has all-star experience in the past, a player who is well worth a max contract in my opinion. And the further he gets from his obviously catastrophic injury he had a few years ago, I think the better he'll get again. And I think that this is a really winning move for the Hornets. And looking at the Batum stretch wave, the important thing with that is, the Hornets aren't going to really need that extra cap space. And they can still go over using things like the mid-level exception. So that contract number that they're going to be missing with him, $9 million a year for the next 3 seasons, really isn't that big of a deal, especially with the non-taxpayer mid-level being right around that $9.4 million mark.
Yeah, I think that's really big for the Charlotte Hornets, being it's not a free agent destination. Teams are a little wary of Gordon Hayward, obviously with his injury. Last year, he had a pretty good season with the Boston Celtics, but had a harder time finding a specific role for himself, considering they're loaded with wings in Boston. So Charlotte, great move here. Now, what does this kind of mean for the playoff picture?
Yeah, playoff picture. The East is getting a lot more competitive for sure. We'll have another video coming out later today about some of the other teams that have been closer to the bottom, making some big moves, trying to improve their roster. And I think that Charlotte is going to be really happy here grabbing Hayward. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks were interested. And they're going to go from a team that was, really close to bottom last in the East to a team that's competing for an 8th seed early. And the part of the big deal with this is also grabbing some scoring options for the Hornets to really pair with LaMelo Ball to maximize his playmaking potential. And, you just want to put a good product on the floor, especially when you're going to start selling more tickets, more jerseys because of the LaMelo Ball draft pick. So if you're a Hornets fan, you got to be happy with this. It's not very often you get a big ticket free agent to come into Charlotte, and this is what Gordon Hayward is for you guys. And remember, this is a player that Michael Jordan had wanted back in 2024 in restricted free agency when the Utah Jazz ended up matching that offer sheet for him, and now they finally get their guy, albeit 6 years later. But Hayward's a guy that's going to come in, give them a lot to work with offensively, and he's a competitive defender too. Now you really got to look at improving that front court a little bit more. I think PJ Washington's a quality forward, but you could definitely make some improvements there at the 4, and I think definitely the 5 with Cody Zeller. Obviously, we saw them address the backup position there with both Vernon Carey Jr. and Nick Richards in the second round of the NBA draft. But there's still a lot of room to go. I think that they could improve their guard spot, and they've also got some young pieces that are movable like Miles Bridges and Malik Monk. So I think you're looking at a team with a lot of flexibility at this point, have a lot of moves to make to really maximize what they've got around LaMelo Ball, and I think Gordon Hayward's a great first step for that.
Now, kind of looking at that starting lineup, Sheldon, kind of break down what you see is going to happen with that starting lineup. Who moves to the bench from the guard spots with LaMelo Ball slotting in the starting lineup?
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the interesting thing to watch here, because last year their best player was Devontae Graham, and I don't think that was really close. But he's actually the player I see moving to the bench. I think that they're going to keep Terry Rozier in the starting lineup. They're paying him $19 million a year. And they're going to put him next to LaMelo Ball because of his defensive presence and his ability to function off the ball a little bit better than Devontae Graham. I think Graham will kind of transition into a Lou Williams type role off the bench, and that's a really, really valuable piece for the Hornets moving forward too. I think that they're able to keep all 3 of those guards there. So I see LaMelo and Rozier starting in the backcourt together. Obviously, Hayward will be a starter. I think PJ Washington sticks in at the 4. And at this point, I think Zeller will be the starting 5, but we've heard rumors about Hassan Whiteside being potentially linked there, and I would really love that from a rim protection standpoint. I think that's something the Hornets really need to look into, because he could be a guy to get on that mid-level exception we were talking about earlier, possibly, and he's a rebounding machine as well, so I think that would really fit well next to LaMelo and as a lob-catching threat as well. But I think that at this point, you're seeing Zeller as the 5, and long term, that's probably where they're going to look to improve. I don't think they're going to necessarily be a playoff team this next season already, but part of this is, long term improvement and really kind of starting to build up that basketball product back in Charlotte. And I think Hayward and LaMelo Ball are two great pieces to kind of push that effort forward.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. We really appreciate your support. We have a lot more videos about the NBA coming out later today and possibly tomorrow. There's a lot of news coming in, so we're going to try to keep you up to date as best as we can.